This podcast is a proud member of the UUOP Network.
Your attention, please, and welcome to the Portkey Passport, a Disney podcast for adults, where we discuss all things travel, Disney, and beyond. Grab your passport, sit back, relax, and enjoy the wildest podcast in suburbia. Hosts, grab your park bags and stand clear of the doors as we dive into this episode.
Welcome to episode 46 of the Portkey Passport. I'm Tricia, and I'm here with an extra special guest tonight, my husband, Eric.
Hello.
Who was kind enough to step in last minute when I had a cancellation. And today we're going to share our thoughts on traveling to Disney as a couple without our kid. And then Eric will share some experiences from his many trips to Costa Rica. But
I will do that.
But before we do that, I would like to remind everyone of an upcoming discount. So if you're interested in traveling to Hawaii, Disney is offering 30% off select stays of 5 nights or more this fall. Traveling must occur between October 19th and December 23rd, 2026. This is a great opportunity to get to the tropics when the weather starts to turn cold. All right, Eric, we're going to dive into our main topic about couples travel to Wisconsin. And I hope I'm using the word fortunate here, but I felt we were fortunate enough to travel together. Hopefully you feel the same way.
Yeah, 100%.
And
Absolutely.
a big thank you to Grammy for providing free childcare so we could do these trips.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the requirements, I think, for us to be able to do it. So that works out well.
But I thought we could take some time to kind of compare our experiences against traveling as a family. For me, solo, or in your case, traveling with your dad, which is kind of like traveling with a child sometimes.
Yes, very much.
And then just give some tips on traveling as a couple. So, what?
Is it fair to point out, though, before we start, that coming into our relationship, was not like the Disney fan, so to speak. Like I like Disney movies and enjoy certain things like that, but the idea of Disney World was not, as a repeat travel location, was not something that was really high on my radar at the time.
You heard it here, folks. They can be swayed. What do you think that is? What has converted you?
I think it's a couple of different things. I would say certainly taking Lorelai when she was little and being able to see the experience through her eyes. Every time we go back, it doesn't matter if she's with us or if it's just us or, it's my dad and I or whatever. You still experience those memories again based on locations, rides, food, any of those things. And so being able to relive some of those moments when she was young, she's still young, but when she was younger, it just, there's something comforting about that. And then I think as an adult and getting to a certain point in life, there's a balance when it comes to travel that I think we're fortunate to have. We like adventure, which we'll talk about some of the Costa Rica stuff in a little bit. That's a little bit, it's more adventuresome travel, so to speak. But then there's also this part that's kind of nice to be able to travel to a place that has enough opportunities and experiences within the confines of the property. So you have the 4 large parks in Disney World and multiple different properties that you can stay at or visit. But every one of them, the customer experience is really, really good. It's very rare that you'd have a bad experience. And being someone who's in software development, we're always trying to make the customer's experience the best as it possibly can be. So to not have to focus on making somebody else's moment great and be able to be the person who the experience is designed for is actually very nice for a change. So I think that that's a big part of it. And I do also like that the Disney parks are large enough that even when there's significant crowds, you're still able to find spaces where you can kind of get out of the crowd if you need to, or you can take that quick trip back to the resort for an hour just to kind of separate, and you're not just stuck. So I think all of those things in totality are what has kind of converted me to be someone who can balance his travel with Disney, maybe a little more balanced than you, but still, I do enjoy going back.
Yeah, I balance my travel. I make sure to get to all four parks. That's a balance right there.
Yeah, or both coasts, so you can get to Disneyland as well.
Exactly.
Nice.
So you kind of mentioned what it's like traveling for you and coming to this point. Um, Compared to traveling with just me, how does this differ for you when we bring our kiddo with?
I think certainly when she was much younger, you're a little limited in what you can do. Now, we're very fortunate that we have a freakishly tall child. Some could say it's because we're freakishly tall. So we weren't really ever too held up on rides from that perspective, but their stamina wears out, especially if you're trying to take advantage of early magic hours, but then you want to stay for fireworks. You have to balance things. Kids definitely are like Pac-Man, where they just need the next candy or food drop along the journey, and they just munch their way through the parks. So there's a lot more stop and start. There's also a lot more of strong opinions in the moment of what should be happening. And some of it can be the kids, some of it can be a parent as you're trying to figure out, like, should we do this? Should we do that? So I think it's just it's all good and it's just relative to what it is, but I think it's just a lot more energy that goes into just navigating the experience, let alone being able to consume and do different things, if that makes sense. It's like it's a production to get anywhere, especially if you have a stroller or if you have some sort of a carrier, you've got a backpack. There's always extra stuff, and again, it's not bad, it's just the reality of the time. And until you get to a certain age way later in life, you don't really need all of those extra things like a stroller or a backpack.
I have to say, my park bag has shrunk considerably over the years,
Yeah, yeah, no kidding.
and it's nice. I like traveling light in the parks, especially. So you've had the experience of two different types of couples trips. Can you talk a little bit about traveling with a parent who's a bit older and a little bit more limited mobility?
Yeah. Yeah, so my dad is in his early 70s, and he's had a rough physical life, fell off a roof. He's had a number of issues, and so his mobility is slightly limited. He can walk just fine. He just can't go fast. And he's also, I'll just call it like it is. I grew up in the country. He grew up in the country, and he's lived in the country his whole life. And so life is at a slightly different pace, and he likes to take in all the sights and sounds. So you can't really, with him, I can't just fly to the back of a park to ride a ride. Uh, my dad and I, conveniently enough, got stranded, so to speak, in Orlando for 23 hours and 50 minutes because we missed our connecting flight to Costa Rica by 10 minutes um, due to weather and all sorts of other things. And it was kind of the moment of what the heck are we going to do for 23 hours and 50 minutes? And that was when I texted you and said, just book us a night somewhere on property. And it was actually kind of cool. We didn't get a park ticket, but we did Disney Springs. We rode the monorail. We did um, the Skyliner. We walked the boardwalk at Epcot. We had dinner over there, and it was perfect for him. He didn't need to go in the park. He didn't need to go on any rides, but just to be able to navigate all of that without having to get another lift or a taxi or jump on a bus. We were able to literally take the Disney transportation everywhere without even needing a bus. And it was a great way to kill time. And we were able to enjoy just father son time in Disney without having the added expense of the park tickets. And quite frankly, the room rate that we had, I think we stayed at Pop Century, which was fine for the two of us for a night. And the room rate was competitive with any of the hotels around the airport. So it really was a great benefit and opportunity. Now, if we were going in to do rides and stuff, we probably wouldn't have made it very far very fast, but I'm sure we would have enjoyed the time anyways.
That actually brings up a really good potential future topic of how to spend a slow day on Disney property.
Oh yeah, we're experts at that. Somehow our slow days are fast days. We just don't go in the parks. Kind of crazy.
Alrighty. Well, now remember, we live together, so be kind. But how would you kind of describe your experience traveling with me?
It's the best.
All right, that's the right answer.
No, it is. I mean, we kind of picked each other to be stuck with each other for the rest of our lives, so we might as well at least be able to travel well together. Um, no, I think it's one of those things where we we come at things differently, but we always seem to find that end place together. So I'm a much more adventuresome traveler, fly by the seat of your pants. You don't have to make all the plans until you're kind of in the moment and see where the wind takes you. And you are the exact opposite, where the mere thought of not having every hour of the day mapped out 3 months before we leave for the vacation, it gives you heart palpitations. And
It's only 2 months because it's 60 days to make advanced
no,
dining reservations.
you need 30 days to plan out your 4 a.m. wake up for those dining reservations 60 days out. Don't be fooled, listeners. Don't be fooled. But I will say that what we have learned, I think there's a couple things that play in here. What we have learned is that not having Lorelai with us, we are able to switch on the fly much quicker
Mhm.
because we don't need, she, especially when she was really little, there was a regimented schedule, times for eating, times for taking breaks, stuff like that. We don't have that. So if we have to kill an hour to do something, we can find ways to amuse ourselves. And it doesn't matter if it's hot or if there's extra people, we'll just find something to cool ourselves off or get out of the way of people. And so I think what we're finding is as we're traveling more and repeat traveling to Disney, there's also a little bit of we've experienced a lot of things. So if we don't get every experience every time we go, that's okay. And because we have the flexibility of our schedule, you are getting much better at saying, all right, I know on this trip, I want to do these 2 or 3 things because that's what I'm in the mood for. That's what we've done for, and everything else we kind of fill in. We have a good plan before we get there, but it's not so rigid and chiseled into stone that if we miss something by 5 minutes, the whole vacation shot. And I think that that's where the balance between the two of us comes in is, for me, I have a list of things that I would like to do, but if I don't do it, I don't know. I'm not at work. I'm not caring for a child. So I'm pretty amenable to whatever is out there. And I also think that as adults, when you're just traveling as adults, you can do certain things that maybe you wouldn't do with kids. Now we live in the upper Midwest, and it is very common that families will go to bar restaurants to have dinner. And so kids are around, a bar ecosystem, but that's our upper Midwest culture. But even so, when we go to Disney, I don't really feel the desire to go to some of the lounges and bring Lorelai with. And I think some of the lounges she couldn't come into, just because that's not really the vibe when you're kind of on a family vacation. That's us. Other people have it other ways, but when it's just you and I, we can say, "Oh, let's go in there and see what they have, what cocktails are on the menu, or get a drink or something," and we don't have to feel like we are, um, you know, kind of tainting the Disney magic for our kids' eyes, sort of thing. So I think all those pieces together make it a little bit more, I don't know, convenient or flexible for us. And then just the way we both think, we can navigate things pretty easily.
Yeah. I want to say, I think you and I taking a trip to Disney without her was like one of our first big just couples trips since before she was born.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely. It was, I think, our first trip that we took when we actually had like adult money,
yeah.
because we got married young. So, our honeymoon was like it was not cheap, but it was not, lavish by any stretch. And a lot of the vacations we did before that were like weekend driving trips, little things here or there,
Yeah.
or staying with family, in places that we went. So I think that that was also one of the first times where we, just you and I, had a trip that was for us, and it was kind of like we can actually lean into this experience and have it.
Yeah. I, I was going to say, we traveled well when we were younger.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
well, as in we traveled well together, not that we had, like you said, we weren't flush with cash when we first started out. But, you know, waiting essentially a decade to repeat an experience like that, who knows? We grew a lot. We had a kid, and I think it was pretty reassuring when we did that trip together because by the end, I was like, that was a lot of fun. That was like one of the most fun Disney trips I've taken was just you and I. We won't
Yeah,
tell
it
Lorelai
was.
that.
Well, I mean, we did that. That was what, not this February, but the February before that. And I just remember we kind of got to the end, and I mean, in my mind, it was like we should do this every year. Just you and I, whether it's Disney or somewhere else, but we should do this every year because it was nice to be able to have dedicated time far enough away from everything else that we just got to enjoy it. And again, being in the Disney ecosphere, the the experience is so well manicured for you that you don't really have to ever want or need for anything. It's all provided. You just maybe have to go walk to it sometimes. Just it takes so much stress off. You're not, oh, where do we have to fill up with gas on this drive? And oh man, I hope that the hotel that we want to stay at has rooms. There's none of that. You're just, where you're going back to, and everything's provided for you.
You use the term ecosphere. It proves that you're still getting indoctrinated because us experts call it the Disney bubble.
Yeah, I feel like I'm in a snow globe then. I'm going with ecosphere.
I like how you're classing it up a little bit. um, so with that being said, I thought you and I could just go back and forth for a little bit here and share some of our favorite Disney experiences traveling as a couple. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna go with the one that I is very special to me, and that was my planes, trains, and automobiles experience to come watch you finish your half marathon. I know that that was the purpose this year for our couple's vacation. But taking an Uber with a driver had no clue where he was going, getting dropped off in the wrong spot and yelled at by the Mickey police, and then being allowed to walk and walking to an area where I was told to cross and then being yelled at by not even a Mickey police guy who was watching people on the court. I mean, it was this comedy of errors. But that journey to be able to watch you finish something that was so personally important to you was pretty special, and a lot of laughs and frustration in the moment along the way. But all of it rolled up together was really really cool, and that's probably one of my top solo or non-child related travel experiences.
kind of in that same vein, I'm going to go with the main reason, besides getting some time alone together, that we took our very first couples trip was to do a Run Disney event. And that was for the Princess Weekend 5K.
Yep,
And
I have my Mulan medal to prove it.
I'm pretty sure it was warmer in Wisconsin that day,
Oh
that
yeah,
morning.
yeah, that was ridiculous. I just found my Mylar foil yesterday from that race.
Yeah, that was to date one of the coldest races that Run Disney had ever had. And it was our first experience doing a Run Disney race. It was early. It was something else, I'll say that. And you were such a good sport about it. Um,
I didn't want to be in
you
the moment, I can tell you that.
but you did it. You finished the race. Um, I think it's like surviving built a stronger bond.
Yeah, well, it's definitely also one of those things too where y- you suffer through it, but then you can laugh at it together, and it was yeah, it was an experience, that's for sure. And the fact that we flew halfway across the country to stand in a stable in 30-degree weather with people from the exact same state that took the exact same flight as us. It was one of those moments where it's like we could have just met at the airport and had coffee.
That's true.
But yeah, that was a good one. Let's see. I think another one, if it was probably going to be on your list too. So I don't know if the listeners know, but when we had a trip with Lorelei, we did how many times can we go on Space Mountain before the line gets ridiculous or something like that. When we did early park entry, and our family record was 6 times in a row. And when you and I went this year, we were bound and determined to beat that, and we did. And I think we were both a little green in the gills when we got done, and we're like, okay, we beat it by 1-7. We're moving on. but we did it, and that was the for me, the funniest part about that was wondering what the people that were loading the cars, and that they direct you if you're going to the right or to the left, like, these two nuts again. But we did it, and we have the pictures to prove it. And
Hmm. I've
yep.
posted them.
That was a good one.
Um, you're forgetting though that that was also the day of the marathon. And yes, once we got in the park, that was the
Oh my gosh, oh
emptiest
jeez,
that it was in that park for several hours in the morning. It was glorious, but getting there was
getting there.
it was
Oof,
like the Fellowship of the Rings people, like.
pretty much. And it was, I don't know what it was like. I mean, there were lines everywhere at the monorail, and they all intermingled. And I think each line thought it was a different line until it got to a certain point. That was yeah, that was something, because
Yeah.
we couldn't take the buses because of the marathon route, right? So they had all the buses were going to the TTC,
Hmm.
and from there, oh, that was just a nightmare.
Yeah.
But once we
It
got
was
in, it was
crazy.
like it was pretty wide open for, like you said,
Yeah.
until I would say probably close to noon.
Yeah. So, good tip for those of you who are looking for, as Eric said, an adventure. You can still find them in Disney on select
You sure
days.
can.
um, well, we do a lot of crazy things. I've done the 4 parks in 1 day challenge. That was a solo
We did
trip I
that in
took.
January together
Yeah, inadvertently.
on our last
That was
day.
not
We
planned.
were like on the third park, and we were like, well, we might as well just hit the fourth one and say we did it, and we
Yep.
rode a coaster at each one, so that was funny.
Yeah, that was completely unplanned. But that's one thing that I think we both enjoy is like the spirit of a good challenge, and we both we both like adventure. You're more comfortable in it, and I'm getting dragged into it more, less kicking and screaming than there used to be. Um, but I we one of my favorite things was when we did the macaroni marathon.
Hmm.
Um, which again, you guys can check those out on our socials. Um, it was just so fun to one. Okay, so maybe it is like 3 months ahead because I did plan the macaroni steps before the advanced dining reservations in case I had to make advanced dining reservations for any of the locations. But um, I didn't know how that was going to go. I didn't know if we were going to consume so much cheese that we would literally explode. We did not. um, but along the way, we found some really great places to eat. Looking at you, Rosa Mexicana. And we found some really terrible places to eat. Whatever that boat was that was quick service in Hollywood Studios.
Yeah.
Awful. um, so that was like a fun experience sharing that with you and being able to do like try firsts of things that neither one of us had ever done before.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, let's see. I would say another one for me is honestly just the transportation to and from. I think that you and I have now gotten to a place in Disney, which I think I proved to you when I was with my father and managed to get him all around everywhere without having any issues with the transportation. I think in some ways it is almost a challenge for us that we look forward to Jenga or Tetris our way through transportation to not have to take a bus and not have to take a minivan or a lift to get from any park to any other place, whether it's another park, a resort. We have to take a bus for a lot of that, but get over to the boardwalk, whatever. I mean, and we've done it all. We've done the boats, we've done the Skyliner, we've done the monorail. So planes, trains, and automobiles in a way. Um, but yeah, I always enjoy when it's like, well, what are we doing next? And it's, well, the next thing I was thinking was over here, and it's a different park. And okay, how are we going to get there? And what's our method? Um, I think just working through that's always fun.
Yeah. Um, I would say one of like my last things that I want to share about our previous trips is just your willingness to go along with things. So like writing Frozen ever after.
Next time, I'm going to
um
require more drinks.
and you met some of the people in like the Disney communities that I've met over the years, and just like I think it helps you're more of an extrovert, so you're willing to just like start chatting with people, and you're pretty easy to talk to. So you were indoctrinated that way as well. The fact that we both went to a DVC meeting and we got to experience what it was like, sitting through that and seeing the model DVC, like that is a dream I have. It's an expensive dream, and I realize that. But the fact that you are like, all right, let's check it out and just get more information. We are not DVC owners as of today, but I appreciate that your willingness to entertain my dreams and fancies.
It was raining that
So
day, anyways.
yeah, might as well spend it indoors. So I just really appreciated that. I don't know, I think it helped build. It doesn't have to necessarily be Disney, but I do think that there is a level of like whimsy with when you go to Disney, or like letting you kind of relive your childhood a little bit, and being able to do that with someone who's really important to you, I think is a really unique way of like strengthening that bond. So, all right. So we shared some of our personal experiences, but do you have any like suggestions or tips for people who are thinking about traveling as couples to Disney?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would just say is figure out what kind of experience you want. Now, again, we've been to Disney enough that I don't know, there's no experience in the parks that if we don't get to do it, the trip was a waste. There are certain things that we always like to do. We always try and prioritize getting on Guardians. going to Santuli Canteen. Like there's always a couple of things that we try and fit into whatever we're doing because those bring back memories for us, and those are things that we think about when we're not there. But if you're someone who has maybe hasn't been to Disney or hasn't been to Disney in a long time, and you very regimentedly want to hit a number of things, just know that that could add a level of stress if you let it. If you maybe position it more like a challenge and it's, let's see how many of these things we can accomplish. I think that takes some of the pressure off of yourself because I honestly, I think that's the number one meltdown moment for all families and people when they go to Disney is it is not cheap. And so when you're trying to go, you want to get your money's worth. And if you build it up that you have to do all the things to get your money's worth and you miss one, and that can potentially jeopardize all the experiences you had, that kind of sucks. And there's times where we all get roped and trapped into that. And so trying to, you know, if you want to accomplish a lot in the parks, flip it to a challenge as opposed to a we have to do this. If you're like us and you have been frequently, maybe with kids, and you're going to go as a couple without them, I think it's just enjoy the moment. Each of you probably have a couple things you want to do, and then fill in the gaps in between with all sorts of different things. The trip that we went to this year, you wanted to do whatever it was over at the beating thing that you did, and then we were like going
Oh
to the
yeah,
different
Animal
stuff.
Kingdom. Yeah.
Yeah, like you had this whole thing that you wanted to do. And for me, it was kind of like I could take it or leave it, but we had nothing else to do. And so it was like you just said, I want to do this. And it was fun. We kind of walked around and learned different things, learned different areas of the resort and stuff. But it's one of those things where give and take, and if you go frequently, just enjoy the time with each other as opposed to trying to race to everything.
Yeah. That's a good sentiment. I had an annual pass, and we did a fair number of the photo pass stops. And there is a paid experience called Capture Your Moment where you get like private 30-minute time in your choosing of which park. And if you're into that now, again, Eric is a good sport when it comes to taking photos. Uh, some of them may have required some patience waiting for the entourage to get through. And I'm talking about the Epcot ball and having to wait while
Yeah, I know. I got her picture in my
the
brain.
yeah, there was a girl who decided to use it as her like personal glamour shots. It was a good 20 minutes that she was getting her photo taken. But I really wanted the magic shot with Figment, and he stuck it out, but it was like our last night. It was late. We were tired. You could see it on his face, and he was like, I'm so over this. But you hung in there. Uh, but I would recommend get pictures. Um, and if you want to do the capture your moment, it's actually a relatively reasonable add-on. And like the photographers in generally are pretty awesome in Disney. And sometimes I just don't get enough credit for how well they can capture memories of your vacation. So I would recommend doing that. Make sure you stop for some photos. Any other tips from you?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it.
Okay. Well, one other thing I was going to suggest, if you are interested in trying to do a lot and you are a couple that likes to get your money's worth and you want to be in the park all day, consider doing Lightning Lane because you're not paying for an entire family's worth. It's for two people. It's a little more of a reasonable budget. Um, so that's something to kind of consider. Although, if you don't have it, if you like the person you're on vacation with, waiting in a line isn't always the worst thing either. Um, and I would say, like Eric said, we're very like Midwest, and we don't really take Lorelai into the lounges. With like Geo 82, you can't take kids into that area. Um, so we've had now the opportunity to explore some of the lounges, and we've found some really great and some not so great. I'm looking at you, Outer Rim, in contemporary um, experiences. So, I think like for that concept of like taking a midday break, if you're at a park that is near a resort and you don't want to go swimming or you don't want to have to go all the way back to your resort if it's a bit of a hike away, go to a resort in the area and check out one of the lounges. They usually have like small bites, and it's oftentimes in the middle of the day. We found it, well, they weren't terribly crowded. Um, there's air conditioning. It's just a really pleasant setting um, to get off your feet for a little while. So I would also throw that in as a tip for couples.
That did actually just spark one last idea. It's very much in that same vein, and that is we are not big pin traders, pin collectors, but
Mm,
we have in the past used whether it's stopping on the monorail at different resorts and going to the resort shops and looking at the pins mostly for Lorelei. And we look at the pin boards for her just in case there's something that she's looking for. But it's a fun way to see other resorts and kind of like, oh, do we maybe want to stay here sometime? Or definitely don't want to stay here. We've had that experience once or twice, but um, I think that that's another fun way to kind of explore different things. And like Pop Century has the tie dye cheesecake. Different resorts have different little food things, and so that can be a clever and fun way without maybe necessarily the lounge feel if you don't want to go and do that, where you can still get away, get something cold to drink, get a little snack. Uh, Kind of mixed in with that. Just another thing that we do that I find to be fun.
yeah. And if you are parents traveling and you have like a little bit of guilt for leaving the kids behind,
Don't. You
um,
shouldn't.
well,
All the
that's the
things you do
first
for them,
thing.
you can have your few days. Gosh darn it. Just make sure you call and
um,
say hello every day.
Well, I was going to say, yes, don't have guilt. But like Eric said, our daughter does collect the pins. And so she actually gave us like a lanyard of pins that she was wanting to use for trading, and then gave us a list of pins to look for. I don't know if we got the right ones. She seemed pretty pleased with some of the trades that we made. So if you have a kid that trusts you enough, that could be a fun thing to kind of like make them feel like you're thinking about them when you guys are not together.
I guess we'll find out if we did well if the pins that we brought back for her are on the lanyard the next time we go. That'll be our
True.
our audit response.
True. She's like, you can trade these. And I'm like, wait a minute, these are all the ones we
Wait,
got.
feel like we came back with this just like it is.
All right. Well, we're going to shift gears a little bit um, and head to a place where they don't really do pin trading, and that is Costa Rica. And Eric has been there many times. He has family in the area. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you for a little bit. Why don't you kind of introduce the country of Costa Rica to people who are new to traveling there?
Sure. So, like Trish said, my godparents actually retired to Costa Rica and they live there full time. They don't have any children, and so growing up, they were at a lot of my events when I was a kid, sporting events and other things. And I've always had a very strong and close bond with them. So, as they're aging now into their late 60s, early 70s, it's kind of one of those opportunities to be able to go and visit them. I just have to get there, and my housing is all taken care of and everything. So that's one of the main drivers of why I go to Costa Rica a couple of times each year. But also, each time, at least one of the trips per year, I try and go somewhere different, do something different, whether I have other people with me or it's just my godparents and I to explore the country. And it's a tiny country. Um, right in between Nicaragua and Panama. contrary to what a lot of people think, it's not an island. It is part of Central America. Um, but it has some of the highest biodiversity in any one country that you can find. Up to 6% of the world's species exist in Costa Rica, which Costa Rica makes up 0.03% of the land of the world. So very tiny country with a ton of biodiversity, and it has a lot of different ecosystems. It has rainforests, it has cloud forest. It has dry forests. It has mountains, volcanoes, beaches, and in the northwestern portion of the country, for about 6 months out of the year, it is almost like a desert when it hits dry seasons. Very brown, very dirt kind of ground, not a lot of grass or moss or things like that. So it has so much to offer, and it actually, as 6 days ago, was now ranked number one in ecotourism, beating out places like Japan, Germany, Palau, places that have been continuously ranking as the top ecotourist locations. And that's because they've really focused heavily on what their country has, and that is just an amazing array of biodiversity. And so upwards of half of the land is either preserved as state parks or specifically geared towards ecotourism, which has some significant laws around it. If you are a person who is very environmentally conscious, it's a great place to go. If you're not, it's not a place that's going to shove it down your throat and make you feel guilty for wanting to ride in a car somewhere, because that's how you're probably going to get around a lot of it. So it's a phenomenal country, great people, great lots of great food, lots of great exciting opportunities of things you can do. And I don't know where you want to go with this. I could talk for hours, but I've been told I have 15 to 20 minutes. So I'm going to let the host of the show steer me the direction she wants me to go.
Well, I think we need to start a little bit with how you get there and how you get around once you're
Sure.
there.
Sure. So there's two international airports. San Jose is the main one, and Liberia is the other one. And typical airlines from the U.S., like Southwest, United, American, they fly in and out of all of them. Fly in and out of San Jose. I know Southwest goes into Liberia. I don't know if United does, but there are the two international airports. They do not just handle international flights from the U.S. So you will see Avianca is a very large Latin American airline. You can even get Avianca flights into the U.S. So that's another airline that's possible to go there. They'll have airlines from Asia and Europe as well. Not as frequently, obviously, as the U.S., but once you get into those two airports, you kind of have a couple of different options from there. So where my godparents live is about a 4-hour drive from the capital. If it was a straight line and there were no hills and there was no anything, we could probably get there in a little over an hour. But because you're going through a small landmass that has a mountain range with 7 volcanoes that goes down the middle of it, there's a lot of windy roads, uphill, downhill. There's no straight line. The only straight line is not the direction you want to go. So it takes a while to get there. So for us, a lot of times it's more efficient to take a small puddle jumper flight down to where they live. And I think there's 13 regional airports. And when I say airport, I mean 35 seats inside a small little building with a ceiling fan, and you take there's two main airlines, Green Air and Sansa, and they have 8 to 13 seat propeller planes. It sounds scary to some people, but it's my favorite part of the trip because you get to see so much of the land. And where I go down to Golfito, we fly right down the Pacific coast. So left side of the plane, you're looking at the mountain range as it kind of builds up, and then on the right side, you're looking at the ocean waves lapping on the sand. So you really can't beat that. So those are the ways to get around from large jumps. But then if you want to just get around, you either can rent a car, or you can take tourist buses if you are on like a tourist plan. The one thing I will say about renting a car is it's not like the US. Your insurance does not cover you down there. So when you rent a car, you'll have the daily rate, plus you have options of two different kinds of insurance. You must get essentially a liability coverage for the car, that if you total the car, you'll have an out-of-pocket expense, but they'll be made whole, and your out-of-pocket expense won't be the cost of the car. You can also get a liability insurance that if someone totals your car, then that's covered. It's personal preference on the second one, depending on how comfortable you are with it. Most people go without it because usually Americans, by standards, are pretty good drivers. We actually have to take driver's tests to get our driver's licenses, and so we're pretty aware of what's going on. But just be aware, car rentals can be a little expensive, which is why some people opt to do those Sansa or Green Air flights to the areas that they want to go and just do a taxi to their hotel or wherever they're staying. And a lot of times when you're staying in places in Costa Rica, you're going to be staying in a place that probably has it's either in the middle of whatever activity you're trying to do, or you're going somewhere that has a mode of transportation built into it, um, which kind of dovetails, I guess, a little bit into accommodations. There is Airbnb. There's a great Airbnb scene for people that want to drive, want to explore different things. There's a huge resort scene, and when I say resort, there are a couple of like what you're thinking, more all-inclusive type resorts. They're in a couple of the larger expat towns that have more uh, either permanent residents that have come from other countries or long time tourists. You can get a visitor's visa for 180 days in Costa Rica, so you could theoretically live half a year there on a visa. Um, and so you'll have some of the all-inclusive type places there, but more what you see, and part of why the eco tourism bump is jumping higher, is they do a lot of eco lodges. So whether you're in a jungle, the cloud forest, on the beach, you're going to be fully immersed into what biodiversity is around you. Not saying that you're just going to be like, here's a hammock, go find a tree, but you're probably going to be living off of solar power predominantly. There's probably not going to be an air conditioner in a lot of places, but because of the way that the geography is, the nights are cool, you get cool breezes, so it does cool things down. And a lot of those eco accommodations will have day adventures that you can do, whether it's hiking to a waterfall, snorkeling, doing sky bridges, any of those kinds of things. So a lot of times the travel is built in, the transportation's built into those accommodations.
And speaking of activities, there is a number of things that you can do. Can you highlight some of the activities you've enjoyed?
Yeah, there are a ton of things. So if you are a straight up outdoor person who likes to hike mountains and wants to just be in kind of the rainforest and jungle, there's a ton of amazing hikes. You can do self-guided hikes, or you can get a guide who will take you. You can do bird hikes. We did a night hike, which was fascinating, where you have guides that take you through a national forest on a couple of trails, and we got to see all sorts of cool things, including a sloth at night that was climbing through a tree. We got to see, snakes, spiders from a safe distance, all of it from a safe distance, a sleeping toucan, all sorts of cool things. So if you want to do a lot of like hiking and stuff like that, there's also the volcanoes. Most of the volcanoes have caldera rims that you can hike up to. They are very closely monitored. You do pay, like, it's $20 a person, usually, give or take, for your entrance to hike to that, you know, in towards the caldera of the volcano. But because these are live volcanoes, they are subject to turning you away and saying it's not safe today. We're monitoring gas. We just don't want anything to happen. So just keep that in mind. If you
I
are,
wanted I wanted to interject too. For a lot of the parks, the national parks, they have a limited number of people they allow at any given time. So when we were there, if I remember correctly, the recommendation was you either get there really early in the morning so that you can ensure you get in right away, Otherwise, you could be waiting, in the parking lot or, outside the park for a couple of hours before, your slot opens up. Some of the parks you can buy tickets like ahead of time.
Hmm.
So if you want to get into a park, I would make sure that you're planning ahead for that. Not 60 days like advanced dining in Disney, but at least a couple of days.
Yeah, usually a half a week to a week is good enough. Now, if you're doing something like a night tour or a guided bird tour, guided daytime tour, make sure that you understand with whoever you're booking that tour through. Some of them, it's part of the cost when you book with them, they will make the park reservation. And sometimes they say, I will register myself as the tour guide. You need to get your park pass for this day in this time block. And so you need to do that. And the reason they do that is because they want to preserve their ecosystems. And so they don't want, 3,000 people just tramping through the woods. They want to keep it so that there's enough space between people that you may see somebody, up ahead or behind you, but it's meant for you to experience nature, not in a herd. So yeah, that's a good call out. If you're someone who likes a little bit more high adventure in life, there's a ton of zip lining. Again, mountains lead to a lot of downhill. So you can zip line downhill. And then there's also in the cloud forest, they have forest bridges where you basically walk suspended between large trees or over valleys. Uh, I should say that the hiking, you can also hike to a lot of waterfalls because of the mountains there are and the rainforest. There's a lot of waterfalls, and there are some absolutely gorgeous ones. And some of the smallest little off the beaten path ones can be the greatest ones to experience just private time at a little waterfall. Um, if you are someone who likes the finer, higher end pampering type experiences, there are hot springs, again, volcanoes. So there are hot springs, and we went to a hot spring resort one day where it was just like, you know what? We are just throwing all caution to the wind and going to pamper ourselves and let the child play in the warm water and go down water slides that would not be legally allowed anywhere else. Super fast, a little painful on the entry, but there are
You know
some
what they
really, really
reminded me of? Those water slides reminded me of the metal slides that used to be in parks, where they'd get up to like 90
uh-huh.
degrees and like that level of safety.
Yep, we got it. I should say there was one water slide that we went on that you were not allowed to go on if you were over 50 years old, which was kind of
Yes.
funny. That was funny. Um, but no, like they have hot springs. There's a lot of wellness type spas on the Gulf side, the Atlantic side. They have a lot of yoga retreats. There's a lot of people that like to go to Costa Rica and have like a week long yoga retreat because you have the warmth, you have the humidity, which obviously loosens up your muscles. And then, a lot of times they're doing it on the beach. So you've got the waves lapping. It's very peaceful. So there's kind of a whole area on the Gulf side where that happens, which also happens to be where the annual sea turtle hatching happens, and that you cannot plan. You can get roughly close and pray that you're there when it happens, but it's nature. There's no
Yeah.
no like we're
Yeah.
gonna pop out of here on this date. But that's really cool. Also, there's a number of Manuel Antonio is a national park on the Pacific side that's well known for having a significant amount of sloths and all sorts of other animals. And in the Manuel Antonio area, it's also very common that a lot of people do horseback riding. You can horseback ride on the beach. You can do it through kind of the valleys, different people. So a lot of, outdoor enthusiasts, those are a lot of like kid friendly options as well. A lot of the experiences are geared towards families. So, it's a very even young child friendly place to go. I would say 7 and up, it's all fair game. Any younger than 7, there's going to be a few limitations just based on comfort levels and things like that. But and then the other kind of pieces that I really love to do is when I travel to different countries and even different cities in the US or Canada, I like to try and learn about the culture itself and understand what historically they've done. So Costa Rica has long depended on agriculture for subsistence before any sort of importing and exporting and trading. So there are, things like coffee plantations. We did a coffee, cocoa, and sugarcane experience. Costa Rica, especially in the south where my godparents live, is an actual banana republic. And no, it's not a clothing store, not a high-end Gap. It was a place that the United Fruit Company went and planted banana trees and had significant investment in bananas before it moved on to cheaper areas like Brazil for planting. And a lot of the bananas have now transitioned over to African palms, but understanding the different agriculture that the locals, who are called Ticos, uh, grew up learning and knowing about for generations, is very fascinating to me. So I love going on coffee plantation tours. I also love drinking coffee, so it kind of goes hand in glove there. But those are some of the unique experiences where you get to hear people who have lived their entire lives. This is a family farm that's been passed down for a couple of generations. They're trying to find their way in this new economy of things like fair trade. How do they go full organic? Do they have a hybrid? What are their opportunities? And so it's very very interesting, unique, and fascinating for me to experience that. And then, of course, just being in the cities and seeing people move around and understanding how they live. And um, one of the biggest things for us when we take Lorelei places, especially like Costa Rica, is exposing her to understand the different worlds that we all live in. And for us, by my godparents, there's a couple of very small rural schools that on any given day may have 4 to 12 kids that are attending. And we take school supplies down just, when school hits in season up here, and then all the sales go bonkers for pencils and colored pencils. We just go and grab a bunch, and I take them down with me. But the first time we took Lorelei, we went to one of the schools, and she had a box of maybe 12 packs of colored pencils that we were going to give, and the teacher got so excited, and she asked one of the kids in the schoolhouse to go get their bin of colored pencils, and he brought it over, and there were 3 colored pencils that were 2 inches long. And Lorelai just turned and looked at me and was like, "That's all they have." And it was like, "Yeah, that's all they have." And so getting that exposure for her, and then even for you, when we were on our trip up in the cloud forest, and you're like, "Okay, fine, you pick dinner." And I took you
Oh
to a
yeah.
local a local soda, and I just remember we pulled up, and you're like, "Really? You sure this is safe?" And I think you will say that was one of the best meals we had in Costa Rica.
Yes, those are the biggest empanadas I've ever seen.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I also wanted to mention too that if you're into more like traditional museums, San Jose itself, it has a lot of options. So if you want to stay more within a larger city, that's a good place to get a taste of the history and the culture as well. And the architecture there is just so different from anything you can find in the
hmm
United States.
One little caveat note for folks. Um, a lot of the places that are really geared towards tourism and advertise for tourism, they can speak English. It may be a little bit broken, but they can speak 95% of what they're going to be able to do in English, and you won't have a problem. If you start getting a little bit more off the beaten path, knowing Spanish is advised, or at least being really quick with your Google Translate. I am definitely not fluent in Spanish. I can usually pick up the conversation by listening. Trying to put it together and talk can be a different challenge, but there are certain experiences that if you're not sure when you're looking at if you want to book something, just send them a message and say, "Do you speak English?" Or do I need to make sure I speak Spanish? If they say, "Oh, we only offer the tour in Spanish," then okay, if we don't speak Spanish, we don't have someone who can translate for us. We probably want to go somewhere else. But good news, if you find that, there's going to be 10 more things right behind it that you can do. And the only reason I say that is my favorite coffee tour that I've gone on so far. The gentleman, the proprietor of the farm, he Finka Surkoff was the name of it. He didn't speak English, and so we kind of actually depended on my godfather for the translation. But I was able to pick up a lot of it. But that was by far the coolest tour that I've done. Just how he talked through everything that his family's gone through, what he does, how he manages the plants. It was fascinating. So, just a little word to the wise there. You don't have to speak Spanish to go to Costa Rica. Certain experiences you might just want to double check and make sure if you're not comfortable or you don't speak it fluently or have someone with you who can translate.
Yeah, and if you are concerned about that, like Eric mentioned, there's a wide range of accommodations, and you may want to consider staying at like an all-inclusive resort. A lot of those will have like day trips or like excursions or outings where you'll be with someone. So if you, I personally think Costa Rica is a great place to go for really anyone. If you're wanting to just get started in spreading your wings outside the United States, there's options for that. If you're someone who's done some traveling and you feel comfortable, you know, kind of making your own itinerary, there's areas for that. And if you are someone like Eric who is a pretty high adventure, there's opportunities for that as well. And I think this speaks volumes that Costa Rica was my first time leaving the country. So, it can be a place where if you're not used to traveling outside of America, that is still like a really enjoyable place to go.
Yeah, I will say, cost wise, it's it's a little bit more expensive than kind of normal everyday living for us. Maybe a moderate hotel that you're going to stay at could average between like 120 to $150 a night in the US. It's probably going to be 135 to maybe 200 at the higher end for the middle grade. And they have Holiday Inn, Marriott, Hilton, in some of the larger cities, those are there. A lot of people choose to use their rewards points and rewards nights. So they're very used to that. And then the other thing that I was going to say is if you do go, actually, I should have two things. Food wise, you're not going to find a lot of the typical American type foods, especially in certain areas. So, where my family lives, beef is not a good option because it's very hot. And the beef that live there, that get butchered there, are not like the beef there. It's not a burger or steak you're used to eating in the United States. I don't care what state you're from. It's not like that. Especially if you're from like the upper Midwest or Texas, dude, avoid it. But if you're up in the mountains where there's rich, lush grass and the cattle are able to eat and finish more properly, the beef is fine. One thing in general, there's a lot of seafood, especially on both coasts because you have the ocean there. So if you like things like snapper or grouper, those are often on the menu. Snapper is very common and is very, very tasty when you are down there. Um, and the other food thing I was going to say is that Ticos tend to have a little bit more of a sweeter palate. So if you are a person who likes a tomato sauce that's a little more savory, more Italian style, you may be disappointed. You will probably get excited because you will see spaghetti or pizza on a menu and you will order it and you will go, I think they used ketchup for the sauce. Some of them may have used ketchup. Most of them don't use ketchup, but they have a sweet tooth and they like their tomato products to be sweet. So I usually caution people, maybe don't get the red sauce pasta or the pizza because you might be let down if you like it. The most common things are going to be very typical. Central and South American cultural type foods, rice, beans, tortillas, chicken. There's definitely bacon. So you will definitely their national dish is pinto gallo, or gallo pinto for breakfast. We just call it pinto, and it's a rice and bean and peppers and some sauce in it. It's not like soaking wet sauce, but very, very tasty. So just be prepared. Food's a little different, but it's all very yummy. It's certified by our daughter, who can at times be a picky eater.
True. And their drinks run strong. So, if you wonder why the rum's gone, it's all in Costa Rica. So,
Yeah, it is.
I will say, to kind of round this out, one of my favorite experiences was being in that tiny little boat that your family owns, and in the Gulf having the dolphins swimming alongside us. Like
Mhm.
that was something that you picture in a movie, and to see it happen in real life, it was like, I don't know, kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, I guess I totally skipped that. One of the biggest things where my godparents live is sport fishing. So marlin, swordfish, those are big charters, big business down there. Tuna. Uh, there's a woman that runs a great ecology business down there, focused on saving whales, and you can do whale tours with her, where she goes and puts audio phones, microphones underwater, where you can listen to the whale calls. She takes you snorkeling. Uh, just in the trips we've been down there, we have just casually seen dolphins, whales, not dangerous, but large, sharks, um,
Mhm.
numerous fish, turtles, you name it, all out on that water, and it's beautiful. Some of the
Well,
best
thank
sunset
you.
pictures you'll ever get, because the
Yeah,
golden hour is amazing at the equator.
it's true. I have some really great pictures when we were down there. Well, thanks for coming on the show today. I really appreciate your insight on couples traveling to Disney, and also your insights with Costa Rica.
My pleasure. Happy to pinch hit anytime.
Well, if you've been on a trip recently, perhaps you've even booked it through Port Key Vacations, and you'd like to share your story, reach out to us at portkeypassport@portkeyvacations.com, and we'd love to have you join us and give a trip recap. And thank you for joining us today. You have earned both your couples travel stamp and your Costa Rica stamp. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
If you're looking for a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, continue to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Just search the Port Key Passport. Want in on the antics? Send us a transmission at portkeypassport@portkeyvacations.com with your comments and questions. Listen and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and everywhere else podcasts are found. And feel free to leave a cast compliment in a review. Plan your next magic adventure by contacting your favorite Port Key Vacations agent at portkeyvacations.com. Podcasts assemble on the UUOP Network, the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast, Rush of Fear, a Halloween Horror Nights podcast, the Taste of Universal podcast, the unofficial Universal United Kingdom podcast, Big Dumb Stuff and Theme Park Duo for West Coast news and updates. And check out our network partner, The Fudge Factor, on YouTube for park vlogs.